Go ahead.
I wonder, did you have noticed information or any interest in the idea of developing state banks such as the North Dakota Bank, in which a bank is established, and there actually is a bill for Arizona to try and pursue that kind of an option?
Thank you. When we started the SHIFT campaign last year, we talked a lot about the fact, the statistic at the time was that 74% of Arizonans were depositing their money in 3 national banks, none of which were loaning to small businesses. So the challenge there is that we as a community are saying, hold this for us, but we're not worthy. And it's going to be real hard to restart our economy if we can't give them business loans. So we're working at it more, well, I'd say we're working at the state level and the grassroots level, but it was a really awesome thing that happened on November 5th where the nation, because of the Occupy movement, encouraged people to shift to, in that case it was existing institutions, so they were really going for the credit unions. And as an organization we are non-political, so we didn't really, we put it in our newsletter, we informed people about it, but we don't want to politicize ourselves because we could end up really getting our knees. However, we are very aware of that movement. We're watching what's happening in those other states. We've had a couple of success stories. The city of Phoenix actually moved a large portion of their bank balance into local credit unions up there. So we're encouraging not only our members but our community supporters as well to do that. It's a great way to make a difference.
I personally bank in credit unions or local community banks. They're under tremendous pressure, as everyone else is. I've been told don't buy more big banks in my business career than you can shake a stick at. The job of the Arizona Treasury, which is run by Doug Ducey right now, is to safeguard and invest prudently the pension funds and the money of the state of Arizona from school districts and fire folks and drug. The challenge I would be very cautious of is, do they get into speculative things, real estate loans, and look what might have happened had that bubble been caught, and we would be really in a big trouble right now. So I like the idea, and I think the Dakotas did very well because they were farming based and they were very prudent on where they put that. But someone has to make the decision of how far we chase the return and what's the risk. And that would be the part that I'd be a little bit careful, especially in growth Arizona. We go like this constantly. So, thought. But there is absolutely no money flowing to the small business community at all. And I've gone through multiple businesses, talked to a lot of folks about it. The capital markets have dried up completely.
But there's another approach, which is cooperatives. I've lived in communities in Arizona in which our electricity was provided by a cooperative.
Is there a question coming, Wade?
Well, I'm just wondering if the community is when we're trying to think out of the box, if we're not, I'm hearing a lot of stuff about business is the solution to jobs. I think maybe we should consider that cooperatives is another solution to jobs. When people were talking about moving money from banks to credit unions, people said to me, oh, but people are going to lose their jobs in the banks. Well, I said, well, they're creating jobs in credit unions. So I'm just saying there is another approach to organizing services for people and jobs for people that's not just businesses. And that's all. And anybody want to comment on that from the panel, I'd particularly be interested.
Any comments? Okay, other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I keep repeating this, but when I entered the job market, it was the beginning of the women's lib movement, and at that time, we always thought that men and women would work fewer hours a week because we had all these wonderful machines that were coming online, and because we thought it was only fair to give women the opportunity to grow in their careers, in their personal lives, with a job outside the home, and it was only fair to men to give them the opportunity to parent equally with women. Unfortunately, there have been no revisions to the labor laws. So women entered the workforce and we became just like men, willing to work 40 hours a week, 60 hours whatever the corporation required of us. I noticed that Germany has not had such a terrible downturn in their economy, and one of the reasons is they have used their unemployment to subsidize workers who've said, yeah, we'll take job sharing. You know, we won't earn as much as we did, but we won't have to work as hard as we did either. We'll have a little bit more time to work.
Are we almost at the question?
Yeah. Does anybody, speaking of thinking outside the box, does anybody ever consider that perhaps we should be looking at the general, what a definition of a job is and how we've constructed it? Not for the benefit of the workers, but the benefit of corporations.
Well, I'll tell you that I can speak on the slide there. We have about 2,000 members statewide, about 350 here in Tucson. And I know about 3 businesses just off the top of my head who, when the economy tanked, they went to their employees and they said, how do you want to handle this? We don't have enough money anymore to pay for all 10 of you. And they pretty much did that. They went into job share mode. They all took the same, they did what they needed to do. So I guess my short answer to the question would be, I'm not sure that you can create a policy in America along those lines because of our culture is very different than the work culture in Germany. However, small businesses, local businesses are terribly adaptive and resilient and creative, and they will come up with those kind of plans for their business if it's what they need or if it's what their workers are asking for.
Other questions? John?
First, I want to thank the last speaker for exposing the community to solar thermal energy. It has the advantage over photovoltaic in that it's economically feasible. The photovoltaic is not economically feasible. It can only be done by cheating the ratepayers or cheating the taxpayers. But that stuff you're building will work. It will actually work. Now, all this talk about job creation, huh? Okay, you guys, suppose you were in Congress or the City Council or the Board of Supervisors. What law do you pass to create jobs? What do you do? Because if you're just talking, you're just talking, huh?
Go ahead.
I'm going to focus local. Well, let's go down to the Tucson, which is part of my conversation. We have a culture that does not embrace and encourage the entrepreneur to step forward and risk his capital and his life and his family to open his business. It's a cultural shift that needs to happen within the bureaucracy and within the elected officials that are in office. So that's probably where I would start. We can go into details of what that looks like. The gal that had the 3-centimeter sign that was too big and running through that gauntlet of problems. I hear that story a lot. And I hear in election season a lot of rhetoric about fixing that, but in reality I still see that problem. So it comes down to a culture of, hey, that small business person is an integral part of this economy, and they're the ones out there hiring.
So let me just push you a little bit there. John's asking, what would you do? Is your answer that you would allow that woman, the city ought to allow that woman have the additional 3 centimeters? Is that the answer?
I think there's prudence. I think there is when someone comes to the counter to get their permit to their building or their project, there's a conversation and a relationship, like a customer service relationship that happens. We don't see that very often. One inspector will say X, and another inspector comes in and says Y, and a third says Z. And meanwhile, that business owner has got time ticking away, he's got employees waiting to open. So we have lost the focus of, hey, what's the goal? The goal is to get that person open quickly so they can return tax dollars back into the city so we can fix potholes and graffiti and those kind of
So
things.
it's a procedural thing to get stuff done quicker.
I
There's
would
no
say
new
so.
laws that need to be added. It's simply to get stuff done quicker.
Correct.
And let me just follow up on that if I might. Do we have any idea why that stuff isn't getting done quicker? I mean, you're talking about the symptom there, but what is the problem that it's not getting done? Are they just stubborn, or they don't know, or they what?
I know where you're going. There's a role that a council plays, and there's a role that the city manager and the government plays. I see a situation where the council oversteps their role in many cases. Let's go back to my Goodwill story. It took me 7 months to lease a 1,200 square foot empty building with a tenant that wanted to go in there. 2-3 years ago, there was a problem in a neighborhood where their Goodwill went in and they were putting stuff in the collection boxes or something was going on. So an ordinance was created to stop that from happening and to allow a number of people to review that process before it got through the end result. For 25 or 30 years, we've been doing it one way, and all of a sudden it changed. That change to accommodate a neighborhood or a particular problem or an issue caused a ripple effect. Multiply that times thousands and thousands of businesses and thousands of experiences, and that's what you see happening. It's like barnacles on a ship that keep kind of coming along to the point where folks like me, and I'm at that point, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to go to your market in Tucson and continue to do this. I'll go to Marana, I'll go to Phoenix, or I'll do another business. That's where we get.
Jim, go ahead. Chime in.
Just one thing, John. If I could do this, and I've been trying to get the guys to do it, but for some legal reasons they can't. Rick did a great job, I think, of bringing in the California company, but said, you know what, we're not going to use you unless you move here or move your operation here. I've had staff go to so many job sites where construction work is being done by companies from out of state. I can't create jobs locally if they're bringing their crews over from California or Las Vegas, Nevada. So if, I'm not on the Board of Supervisors, but everybody here votes for them, if we could figure out a way to make it a mandate that local work be done by local companies, I guarantee you that would create some jobs. I've had guys go down to the VA hospital area to see if we could get any of our unemployed people jobs down there. Nope, jobs are all full with California people.
I had a comment.
I would, go ahead.
No, you go.
Go ahead.
I would defer to the panelists here who are directly in the business market. I work kind of indirectly, but I think Rick Perry missed it the other night.
You missed several things.
Well, yeah. I think the organization you ought to do away with is the SBA. If you want to think out of the box, that organization was created in the 1940s, following a business model that makes no sense today. They're supposed to get money from the government, maybe, or other sources, into the hands of the small businesses, right? They're not doing it. Haven't been doing it for 35 years. Abolish it. They need to follow a new model. If our representative was here, I would say to him, if you want to make a difference, get money into the hands of the small businesses. And that means that you're going to have to think out of the box, get the entrepreneurs together, along with the money sources, and streamline it and get the money in there. And all these banks that we hear about all the time now have all these millions of dollars and trillions of dollars sitting on their balance sheet. Maybe some regulations required to require them to loan it or lose it, something in that neighborhood. But I think SBA needs to go.
Listen, then Pam.
Hi. I'm going to beg to differ about the PV comment that you made, sir, because the price of photovoltaic is about half what it was maybe the last time you looked at it. So it's quite a bit more affordable, and it does make a lot of sense. I know if you want to get into the thermal PV conversation, that's another thing. I talked to you guys earlier about the PACE program. That's in 24 other states. It is putting money into communities. The Matrix has a local contractor does the installation for renewable, it's clean energy projects. So I can put insulation on my brick house. I can put insulation in my ceiling. I can put rainwater harvesting on my house. These are the types of projects that the PACE program can give us. That is a state issue. It got stopped by the mortgage industry because they did not want to, an argument that is non-existent. And that we have the people, they could come to town and talk to us about that. The other thing, we all saw in the paper this last week that they finally admitted that there's climate change, right, Dave? We saw that, the national scientists who said there is climate change. If we were paying the real price for our energy, the coal, the carbon footprint, and the water that we're using, then there would be no question that the numbers would work. If I'm in California, I'm paying 30 cents a kilowatt hour. If I'm in Sonora, Mexico, I'm paying 30 cents a kilowatt hour. We're getting our power too cheap because we're not paying the damage that it's doing. So those are things that we can advocate for.
Absolutely.
Pam, go ahead.
Yeah. One of the things that I talked about is something that the government could do, but I think you missed my talk. But instead of putting all of our economic development money into, or a lot of it, into bringing business here, take a percentage of it, even 10 million out of the millions that we're spending on this, and make innovation grants. Give it to local business to innovate. And we're not doing that as far as I know. If we are, none of us know about it, right? So that's something the government could do, is to take a percentage and give it to innovation grants, not just to open another business or rent another building, but to do something different. You know, if you got a big idea, give us a proposal. So that's something they can do.